Thank you once again for coming to our budget presentation. The next 15 minutes, hope to just kind of provide a little overview of what Spencerport's hoping to do on May 21st. So first and foremost, our mission, we're here for our students. You know, our premise and our priority is all of our students. We have approximately 3,600 students in 6 buildings. Our mission each and every day is to educate and inspire them based on the changing landscape of our world. And we know from the time that we were in school to 2024, things have changed dramatically and they continue to change. However, the thirst for learning for students hasn't changed, and we're very, very fortunate in Spencerport to have just such a supportive community and have students that just have endless talents, and we're so blessed to be able to work with them each and every day. So when we think about our budget priorities, you know, before we get there, we really have to look at the whole notion of our goals and how we kind of approach the budgetary process. You know, so that whole notion of responsive yet responsible is important. So when we look at, you know, instruction, social emotional learning and safety for all of our staff and students, we know that the financial impact for our community, and then obviously we have short-term and long-term planning that we need to take into consideration when it comes to our instructional programs in the direction of our school district. With those priorities, there were really 4 key priorities: staffing, which will be a theme that you'll hear throughout this presentation, instructional programs, when we look at safety and security, and then obviously our operations too. So with our staffing, which makes up the bulk of our budget, when we look at, you know, some of the pieces in terms of how do we meet the needs of our students, we're relatively stable in terms of our staffing. We really haven't fluctuated much in terms of from the 23-24 projecting forward. Some of our instructional programs, you know, a priority that we have is to maintain lower class sizes. That's critical. I think with our students with special needs, when we look at our special ed budget, that's another contributing factor too. And then also when we look at just the whole notion of early learning, and we believe strongly that early intervention is a key to a child's success, and so we continue to add to our pre-K program. 5 years ago, we had 1 pilot program with 1 teacher that was teaching 2 sections of half-day classes. Currently, right now, we have 6 classes, and then just the demand from our community, we're adding an additional class, which services approximately 18 students in each class. Safety and security, there's really 3 elements that we're looking at. Our visitor management system, so when you all entered here, you went through our Raptor system, how we continue to enhance that. We made the decision to hire our own internal staff, security, and then also when we look at our camera replacement plan is really critical. And the last item then too is just the operational needs as we look at, you know, the beautification of our school district. You'll see here just the capital outlay, which is a new initiative for Spencerport, where we're able to kind of set aside funds and that will receive aid the following school year. That allows us to kind of really target some projects that are really, really important for us. It can only be at 1 school at a time, and we're just trying to finalize, you know, where that efforts will be, in our architects are helping us with that. And the last one that I'll just talk about, will be on Proposition 3, is our energy performance contract, which I'll get into a little bit later, but it's really how do we change the lighting system to LED to be more efficient, or boilers to be more efficient, et cetera, et cetera. Other factors when it comes to our budget, you know, with our staffing as it stays right now, you heard me say earlier, there's not a lot of fluctuation in terms of this year to next year. We did make a decision with some federal funds not to continue those positions, so there's 9 teachers who will be returning to the classroom. We're able to ensure that through natural attrition that no one was displaced. And there's obviously, you look at healthcare and TRS and ERS, just the benefits that our workforce has the luxury of kind of really benefiting from. That's obviously those costs are going up along with workman's comp. One of the pieces that you'll hear too across New York State is that zero emission buses for electric buses. Every school district beginning in 2027 need to start diverting their funds to purchasing only EV buses. We've made the commitment that we're not doing anything right now, just because I think there's a lot of questions out there still, and we need to do our due diligence through studying, through analysis and conversations before we make any informed decisions. BOCES, who is a partner with us, we're very, very proud of that partnership, but some of their special ed programs, those costs continue to rise. When we look at our technology with our one-to-one initiative and some of the costs of software, that's another factor as well. We're really proud of branding, you know, blue and gold, our colors, just anything that we really want to kind of make sure that People are proud of Spencerport, so that's another really major initiative that we have. I think last but not least is just those changes with parent choice. And so parents who make that decision to send their child to a charter school, we see some growing popularity with that across the country. And I think with that comes a cost that we then have some responsibility for students that make that decision. And last but not least, we'll get into a little bit about the assessments as well, the reassessments and how that impacts just our community members. So overall, with our budget, we're proposing a little over $97 million, and here you can see the breakdown. As I mentioned earlier, education is an industry that goes through people, and we rely on people, so the bulk of our costs really are based on salary and benefits. School districts are responsible to provide a three-part budget, so it's broken down into programs, capital, and administrative. So that programs, once again, these are all your instructional staff, our bus drivers, etc. With our capital, that is our buses, our operations and maintenance, and then administrative. Administrative is really just those pieces of management and how we kind of bring all those programs to fruition. So when we look at the revenue, about 90% of our revenue is kind of divided in half. 50% comes from state aid, and the other 50% is from the tax levy, which I'll talk about in a moment. So that's 45% for each element, 90% total. Local resources, that's sales tax, pilot programs, etc. And then we have some other pieces too, just with our accounting measures. So when we look at that $97 million budget, the revenue that I just kind of provided an overview, then you can just see that levy that's required for us to kind of have a balanced budget. I think it's interesting too when we look at a balanced budget, we're still waiting for our friends from Albany just to finalize at the state level. So we're kind of, this information, it could change slightly based on once that budget's finalized. So with that though, we're proposing a 2% increase on our levy, around a little over $43 million. And so then to balance that, we would just then use some of our reserves from workman's comp, unemployment, and retirement contributions. And just that bottom element right there, so school districts have the opportunity to go with a maximal taxable levy limit, and that would be 7.8%, which is about $45 million. So we're $2.5 million below that number. Some quick review of how we come up with how we tax properties here in Spencerport and districts across the state. So you take the levy, and then you divide it by all the assessed value of properties in the school district, and that approximate assessment is about $2.4 billion, and that equals your tax rate. So you heard me mention, $43 million is the levy. You divide that by the assessed value, so it's approximately about $18 is the tax rate. So here's just 4 examples, 2 from Ogden and 2 from Parma. So both those towns went through reassessments, and just some actual examples of value of the home, the assessed value in 2023 into what they are now. And what I would share with this is obviously you can see an increase across the board. And Mike and I were talking earlier, with the volatile real estate market since COVID, I think we're still trying to figure things out. At the end of the day, homes are worth more than they were 4 years ago. And if you were to look at a glass half full approach, the piece in terms of the biggest investment that a family may have, it's more valuable now. With the reassessments though, it's important to note that this is redistributing the funds, and that we would encourage any community member to take a close look at the information that they received. Rick and myself have traveled to all 4 towns, had conversations with their assessors for us to do our due diligence so that we can make informed decisions and try to be as accurate as possible. I think it's also important to note that the closer a home valuation is to the equalization rate, the more likelihood there's going to be less of an impact with the reassessment. And no matter what, when we look at the levy, any changes that a school district may make is going to have an impact then on school taxes that a homeowner would have to provide. So with that levy, you heard me mention earlier, going from up to $43 million, which is a 2% increase. So each percent is about $400,000. Here's some examples right here on the left-hand side, just in terms of the tax rate. So you can see Ogden and Parma, the proposed tax rate will go down. And then Gates and Greece, you can just see some numbers here. These are estimates, obviously, until we know the board will make a decision in the summer. And once that occurs, then these numbers are really accurate. So looking at this a little bit differently, so those 4 examples that I provided at the beginning, you take a look at 2 homes from Ogden and 2 homes from Parma. Ogden house number 1, assessed value of $230,000 last year. It's now increased in value to $362,500. So then you can just see the changes to the tax bill, the anticipated changes, where in fact this individual, this homeowner, would pay less in school taxes for the 24-25 school year. On the opposite end, you look at Parma house number 1, where the assessed value for last year was $140,000. It's increased in value to $237,000, almost a $100,000 increase. This homeowner then would end up paying a little bit more money when we look at this redistribution of funds. You heard me mention just, our priorities are our students, and we boast so many talented students here in Spencerport. We have amazing teachers that work with them each and every day. Obviously, the work that our students do in the classroom from the moment they arrive to the moment they leave is really important as they make that transition to that next phase in their life. But we also provide an array of extracurricular activities, athletics, the arts, robotics, and we have a lot to be proud of here in Spencerport. So you heard me mention just about there's 3 propositions. The first proposition is really our voters approving the budget of that $97 million, which is proposition number 1. It projects a 2% increase on the levy. We also asked the voters then to include the transfer of capital funds of $100,000 for that capital outlay that I also mentioned. We also, for proposition number 2, we have a capital reserve fund that is expiring. It was approved originally in 2014. It has a 10-year limit. We're looking to transfer those funds to a different reserve, where that reserve then would be a 15-year reserve with a limit of $25 million. The third proposition is that EPC, so that energy performance contract. And really what we're hoping to do is, like I mentioned, just replace all of our lights across the district so that they're LED, more energy efficient. Look at our boilers, look at our building envelope, just to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible for that cost savings. What we'd be asking the voters to approve is that 10% aid on the cost of the project. So our board would ultimately have that final decision. So if we go out with a $4 million EPC, the impact really would just be considering that $400,000 that we could receive additional aid from the state. Last but not least, we have 2 board candidates whose terms conclude on June 30th. They are Leah Brown and Mike Maselli. Board packets for individuals who are interested in running for our Board of Education are due by 5 o'clock on Monday, April 22nd. We also have another board member who will be stepping down on June 30th, and so at that time, once the new board is created, they will then make a decision on how to replace that 7th board member. Here in New York State, as we propose our budget, if for some reason it was not accepted, not approved, then the board has 2 choices. They can either decide to go out with another budget vote, or they could decide to adopt a contingent vote. If 2 budget votes fail, then the school districts are required to go to a contingent budget, and really what that means is that we would not be able to go above our current tax levy. So some history for you, just in terms of the last 11 years, or where we are with voter turnout, which are the bars, and also voter approval. So you can just see that last year we had almost 1,400 residents of the 10,000 who came out to vote with a 58% approval rate. Our budget hearing, which is a requirement, is going to be held here at District Office on Tuesday, May 7th at 6 p.m. And the budget vote will be on Tuesday, May 21st, here once again at District Office in this room from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us, and thank you.